and to the republic for which it
for which
stands, one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and
liberty and
justice for all. Thank you very much. We've all had an opportunity to take a look at the regular agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Councilmember Rod,
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer,
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Aye.
Mayor Huber.
Aye. Thank you, Kim. We've all also had an opportunity to check out the consent agenda and hopefully ask Kim about any questions or concerns we have there. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, John. Second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff.
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Councilmember Rod,
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer,
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Aye.
Mayor Huber.
Aye. Thank you, Kim. Moving right into our actions here. City Engineer Brad Reistick. Brad, can you talk to us about our street maintenance quote we've received, please?
You bet. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, I'm looking for a motion to award a contract to a bidder for our street maintenance work for 2021. The streets that we've identified this year are Ideal Avenue North, Great Oak Trail, Jocelyn Road and Jocelyn Lane North, 71st Street North, Lockridge Avenue, 115th Street, Hillcrest Court and Honey Eye Avenue. Again, this year's project includes a combination of patching, crack repairs, and fog seals. I've actually gone out to each one of these sites and investigated each street to determine the remedy for each street. And so based on that, we'll be using the city's bituminous patching contractor to do some of the patching work. And we did go out for quotes. Unfortunately, we only received one quote back for this work, but they have done work in the past for the city of Grant, and we've been very satisfied with that work. So I feel comfortable going ahead to recommend award to Ally Blacktopping in the amount of $61,327.25. This year's budget is $68,000. So we're just maybe $7,000 below that budget. So with that said, I would entertain any questions or answer any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you, Brad. I do appreciate that. No big surprise that we only got one quote back. They're awfully busy right now with what's going on out in the economy. Any questions for Brad in terms of both the patching, which Asphalt Restoration Corp will do? They're doing all of our patching in the city now, as you all know. And then the actual maintenance work being done on the identified streets. Any questions for Brad on this project? Tom?
Yeah, Brad, so you went out and looked at the streets. Are these all fairly new streets? So
No, these are all older streets, Tom. Most of them, the ones that we've identified for the fog seal are fairly cracked up, and we're just trying to add that extra layer of glue to try to hold things together. So these are older streets in the city of Grant.
okay, so do we send the normal letter? If you guys want to do something else, let us know, or how do we?
You know, we didn't do that this year, Tom. We've done that in the past, and it seems like it sets us back a year on getting some of this work done. We did send out letters last year to the Hillcrest Court, Honey Eye Avenue, 115th and Lockridge Avenue area. We did not send out letters to the Jocelyn Road area, but we certainly could entertain that, but it would, again, push the work probably back a year. It just seems like, you know, it takes residents that long to get back to us on whether or not they want to move forward with something. That, you know, again, they would have to file a petition if they wanted something more substantial than what we're recommending for this road repair.
Right,
So-
I just don't want the people on those roads to feel like they didn't have the opportunity that others have. That would not be a good, you know, precedent that I mean, give them a shot. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's all.
I mean, we could certainly do that.
Yeah, other questions, gentlemen? Jeff Schaefer first, and then Kim.
Thank you. Brad, I see, does Allied do the crack sealing as well and the fog seal?
Yeah, they do it all except for the crack or the patching that would be done by ARC.
Okay, and I see our budget is 68,000, and so then the patching would be an additional amount for the restoration company. So would it potentially put us over budget?
It could. I have not talked to ARC. They've been really busy this year. I've tried to get them out to look at the streets and they just haven't had time to look at them yet. If they don't have time to do it this year, I would recommend pushing off those streets because some of them are fairly substantial cracks. I know the one up on 115th Street is down to gravel and it really needs to be repaired before we do any of this work. And so we can certainly limit the amount up to $68,000 with the patching, or we could use some of the patching budget to do some of these, areas where it probably should have been done anyway. So depending on what the amount is and typically it's about $3,000 to $4,000 a patch. And I don't know how many patches we have out here, but I know there's a couple of them, like I said, up in 115th Street. So I guess once I get ARC out there to take a look at it, I can certainly send the quote to Kim and she can distribute it to the council if you wish.
Okay, well, I guess if it makes sense, if there's money in the patching budget, we could borrow a little bit of that to enable to get these streets done. That would be okay in my book.
Well, let's slow down and go backwards a little bit. Kim, you had something to input here.
Yeah, Mayor and council members, we have used regular potholing dollars before for some of these. We quite often take monies from different budgets. And I was just going to note to Councilmember Carr's question about the neighborhood meetings. We typically look ahead and look to see where we're going to have these neighborhood meetings. And typically it's where the large amount of dollars are that the city would be contributing. This is a large area and those dollars were smaller amounts for each street. So.
Well, that's interesting, but if these dollars have not built up in the time it took for these streets to have this type of major renovation done, it looks then like two things. Number one, we're taking too big a bite with all of these streets at once, or we need to rework our schedule to get these letters out because, well, you hear my point here. When are these folks then going to have a surplus of maintenance dollars to put forward into a new paving scheme? And whether that be, well, they can make up their own minds as to whether or not they do the petition or not. But, the follow up on Tom's point, I guess I'm just surprised that these letters didn't go up because it pushes the work back. Is that what I'm hearing? Hey, just hang on a second, Tom. I see you there.
Well, it was mainly because the dollar amounts were so small for some of these streets that were scheduled this year. Again, we did send out letters to 115th, Hillcrest, Honey Eye, Lockridge last year, and that was a significant amount of money, but none of them had responded. Actually, I did get a couple responses from people up in 115th,
Okay.
but they could not champion a petition, and so I never did hear back from them. So we're just moving forward with those streets with the maintenance, assuming
well,
nothing's going to get
Yep.
done.
Now that makes more sense, Brett. So let's just kind of drill down into that a little bit so they can understand it, because this is the one program that we have for folks to go ahead and get these streets done. So I just want to make sure that I understand the situation. The 4 streets that you just talked about, there were significantly more dollars in these accounts for them last year.
That's correct. There's these roads were in a little bit more disrepair. The budgeted dollars for these streets were a little more significant than just doing crack repair. And so we did send out those letters now. Ideal Avenue and Great Oaks Trail and the Jocelyn or the trying trying to think of the lake, Jocelyn Road, Jocelyn Lane, 71st Street, Sunnybrook Lake area, sorry.
Yeah.
You know, most of those streets are in fairly decent shape and we can get by with doing this slower maintenance work, the crack sealing and some of the fog sealing. So
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
usually when we have streets that need the chip seal, which is a little bit more expensive item and is budgeted for. And those would be the streets that we may want to send out letters to, but we really didn't have any of that this year. And
Okay, so
I
these,
guess
the
that's why
folks
we're
that got the,
recommending.
yep, pardon me, the folks that got the letters last year, there was no viable petition that came forward, correct?
That's correct.
There was nothing happening. Okay. And I know Jocelyn Road and Lane North there, that street's actually in fairly decent shape. Doesn't get a ton of traffic, especially with the road closures that had happened down there. So, okay, I understand that a little bit better. I appreciate that explanation, Brad. Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, we
sorry.
have to make some of those decisions, you know,
Yeah.
as a staff to figure out which streets would require a letter, I guess.
Yeah. Kim, why don't you jump in and then we got to go to Tom here.
Yeah, just real quick, just for example, the Jocelyn Lane Circle, it was $4,000 that this was going, okay? And when this was talked about at a staff meeting level early in the spring, and again, Brad had driven all these roads and determined seal coat would be sufficient.
Okay, well, thank you, Kim, for telling us about your staff meeting. Tom?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what I am right now, but I'll just explain. When we started this project, this was because we wanted to have scheduled maintenance on the roads. And we wanted to give the opportunity for the residents, if they wanted to redo their roads, to have the opportunity. It wasn't something that, well, because the city, because we spend a pittance compared to what the actual project was, what the city thinks isn't a lot of money, we remove the opportunity for the residents to get their road redone. It was an opportunity for a conversation so that they could get their opportunity to give their input to get their road redone. Rather than us just to go right over the top of the road and have the residents later say, well, I didn't get a chance to say we wanted to get our road done, unless you ask the question. Now, in the newer roads, that's why I asked Brad, how old are these roads? The newer roads didn't need it. That's fine. We don't care. A couple of the roads that we got input on last year or whatever, never really got an answer. That's fine. I understand that. But the other roads never had an opportunity, and that can't be. They have to have the opportunity if we're going to be consistent with our road policy. That's why we started this road policy, so we could be consistent and
Right.
have the people. No, you may hear
Yeah.
crickets, may not
Yeah.
happen. We don't have a lot of money to offer. Doesn't mean they won't pave the road. They ought to have the opportunity. And if you don't give them the opportunity, they're not going to have the opportunity. I don't think we can arbitrarily remove the opportunity just because we're not going to invest that much money as a city, because we don't invest that much as part of the project anyway. So
Well,
I think those
yeah.
people ought to have the opportunity. That's why we started this project. We've been pretty consistent doing it, and I don't want to lose our consistency.
Right. That makes sense, Tom. Keeping in mind, however, that a petition can come forward at any time. The city's invitational letter is not required
Mhm.
in order for a petition to come forward. So, you know, we may be splitting hairs a little bit there, but that letter from the city is not a requirement for a petition.
No,
to
it's a
happen.
conversation starter.
It
That's
is a
what
conversation
That's what it's
starter.
supposed
It's
to be.
not,
Right.
let me finish, please. It is not a requirement of the road plan or the process if they want to have it done. Is it a conversation starter? Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. That's why we're having this conversation. Couldn't agree more. Next time, I wonder, this has happened. It's water under the bridge. It sounds like we've got a good plan moving forward. Brad's done some good homework, some footwork, some driving here. He knows what needs to be done out there. I wonder next time if this should not be handled at a staff meeting level, but should actually be presented to the council. We could just have numbers. This road has this much, this road has this much, this road has this much. And it would be a pretty simple conversation for the council at that point to say, yeah, you know what, you got a point. There's only $1,500 here. There's only $2,000 here, and there's 30 or 40 houses. Maybe it's not appropriate in this case, but that's a council decision. And I would like to see that brought back to the council next time instead of handled at a staff meeting level. That's more of a council decision. Tom?
Yeah, I don't care how much money it is. This is a conversation starter to talk to the residents about getting the road redone.
No,
That's
yeah,
all.
yeah, I'm in full agreement. Kim?
Yeah, Mayor and council members, I'm going to add here, we are in a pandemic. We were so crazy busy last year, even with the finish up of the last road projects. Half of these people on the street had been approached and were not interested in doing any type of petition. And I think that there's going to be a lot more discussion at your budget meeting regarding roads.
Yeah, well, no, all those are good points, Kim. I mean, it's a complicated situation. Let's not fool ourselves. It's not as
Well,
simple. as
and
A,
I'll
B,
also
C.
add it, like you had said, Mayor Huber, it is not a requirement of your road policy to have neighborhood meetings. This is something staff started doing on their own, quite honestly.
Oh, I totally understand. Those neighborhood meetings got out of hand, frankly. And you know what, if we're gonna have a policy where they're gonna champion the road, then they need to champion the road.
And one last thing, Brad, do you remember the number on the petitions we got last year? The dollars that were spent with neighborhood meetings that they came forward with petition, and then the feasibility studies were done and it didn't go any further. We're talking thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and Brad, you don't need to answer that question. That is part of the process. Did we spend money on that? Yep. Is it sunk funds? Yep. Is it part of the process? Yes, it is. So that process will continue. Some of those roads will get done and some will not, but that is money that on a council level and a policy level is sunk costs. Tom?
Yeah, and again, I'm not talking about public hearings and the whole thing. I'm talking about opportunity for the residents to have their input.
Right.
That's all.
Okay.
If it goes farther, it goes farther. It may not, but they ought to have the opportunity. And that's what I'm talking about.
No, totally agree, Tom. And I think we're going to need to take a much closer look at this. In fact, I would advise every member here to make a note for the budget meeting, because Kim brings up good points. Brad is bringing up good points. Tom is bringing up good points. So let's have a little more conclusive discussion at the budget meeting and look at the numbers and determine whether or not perhaps the policy needs to be tweaked, or perhaps we need to set definitive schedules for these streets. But let's have that conversation. I think that's a good conversation to have. But right now we've got the 2021 pavement maintenance program here, and we've got a quote from Allied Blacktop Company. We will be using to speak to Jeff Schaefer's question, a good one again. The potholing itself, before the large patches go on, the potholing and the patches, I should say, could bring us slightly over budget. So council decision, do we want to just get this project done, not cap it at the 68,000, which is the budget here, but go ahead and tap additional funds in order to make sure that these streets are completely done? It's a job well done. Does that make sense, gentlemen?
It makes sense.
Okay. Tom, you understand what I'm saying there, that we get the job done completely and totally? So if there are
Yeah.
sections that need to be done, we pull that from our potholing budget? Does
Yeah,
that
as
make
long as we
sense?
stay within the budget, I'm always for staying within our budget. So as long
No,
as we
I
stay
think
within our
what
budget.
Jeff, what you're
fine.
saying is that you're saying we might go a little bit over. Is that?
We'll go over the 68,000. If there's any excess, Tom, I'm saying we'll
Yeah.
pull it out of the potholing budget.
So Tom, are you okay with that?
Yes. Does
Yeah,
that
as long
make
as we
sense?
stay within
Okay.
our potholing budget, I don't
Okay,
care.
Yeah, we'll
It's a
stay within
budgeting
both-
issue. We just
Stay
have to
within
stay
both
within our budget.
budgets. Yeah. Good,
Yeah.
Great, Tom. Fantastic. Mr. Rogg, that sound okay to you?
Sounds okay.
Fantastic. Are you looking for a motion on this? What are you looking
Yeah,
for on this?
What is the
guys?
resolution number? I don't-
Mayor, I'm looking for a motion to award.
Yeah,
Okay.
to award the
And we're
bid.
just gonna look for a motion here to award the contract as stated to Allied Blacktop Company in the amount of $61,327.25. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll make that a motion.
Thank you.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Rogg.
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Councilmember Rogg,
Aye.
Councilmember Giefer,
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Aye.
Mayor Huber.
Aye. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we'll take a look at that at budget time. I want to make some notes on that. So have some discussion points ready there. Let's move down to consideration of special road projects. Brad, we got you again on this one.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, we do have a significant amount of money in our special roads budget, about 142,000 or just north of 142,000. And as you know, the last couple of springs, we've had some significant frost boils happen on some gravel roads in Grant, specifically on Inwood Court, Joliet Avenue on 110th and 120th Street. We did receive quotes back from Klein Brothers for this work. Inwood Court is estimated at $52,365. Joliet Avenue is $11,335. 110th Street is $40,870. 120th Street is $31,756 for a total of $136,326. This work would be completed by Klein Brothers with the help of Miller Excavating. So I'm looking for a motion to award this work, and I would be happy to entertain any questions or comments the council would have.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here real quick, Brad, and then I'll follow up with other folks, just because I have information for you, gentlemen, then I'll go to questions. Just new information I just got. I did speak with Brian Klein, and it was too late to get it to Kim to send it out to all of you, so I'm going to do my best faithful representation here of what I was told. I questioned him about each of these projects, which of them and how would he rank them, which were the most important projects, which ones were going to have the most impact. He ranked these as number one most important to get done, and the one that impacts residents the most was the 110th Street frost boil at 400 feet long, and it's on an intersection on 110th, just east of Mr. Roggs, about half a mile or so. That was his number one project. His number two project, excuse me, was the 120th Street frost boil. And Tom, you may remember this one up there by 7. It's bordered on each side by a substantially sized swamp. We had done some work back there probably 8 years ago. Mr. Bonin had recommended some work up there, and we approved that, did that, but it's actually spread and gotten worse though. There, that was his number 2. His number 3, which was, frankly, I'm going to characterize what he said, and it was Joliet Avenue, but his take on this was, we've already done Joliet Avenue at the end. Tom, you probably remember that, as well as some other members perhaps. And we had that one done. Now we just have a little bit of a leftover area there. He called that number 3. He called the Inwood Court frost boil number 4. It's also the most expensive at $52,365. I asked him why. He has Miller Contracting on that. That was my first question. Why Miller? Those of you familiar with Inwood Court know that it's a dead end gravel road, of course, 12 residences on it, with a roundabout to the end, a turnaround on the end. Now, I did go down there and speak with a couple of residents and talk to them about the road and some of the conditions there. They did not seem overly concerned. So that is the information I wish to impart to you. He did rank those as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I will just give my opinion. Inwood Court at $52,365 for 12 residences on that dead end street seems excessive. I'm not sure there's bang for the buck there, gentlemen. That is all I've got on that. Mr. Giefer, your hand was first.
Oh, no, I was just kind of agreeing. I was shaking my head with the Inwood one. Doesn't seem like we're going to get a lot of bang for the buck. The other ones, I think I'm okay. I'd like to hear what the other council members would have to say, but for sure, I've seen the 120th one. For sure, those first two and the Joliet, I guess it's only 11,000. I'm not too concerned, but just like to hear what the other council members have to say.
Sure. The only thing I'll say on Joliet is Joliet is the largest neighborhood in Grant, or the Joliet Woodland Acres area,
Lot
largest
traffic.
concentration in Grant. And we have that new road there. And, sometimes we get folks doing the shortcut thing from 7 down to 96. And I don't know, doesn't seem that bad up there to me. And maybe it's not wise to do that right now. I'm just saying, Sharon, I'm not sure why you're laughing, but I'm just going to leave that there. Tom, you look like you have some good stuff to say.
Jeff, it looks like you're trying to say something. And I'm not.
No, I just, it's just saying.
I'm just, yeah. Yeah, no, I think Inwood is too expensive for what it is. We certainly have a lot of boils is all I really.
But I will tell you this is another piece of information, and I was given this, I'm sorry to interject, another piece of information given to me by Kim Points today. We have been doing these frost boils 2 and 3 per year for the last 5 or 6 years. These are the last 4 in Grant. This is it. We have
So we'll
some
be done
good
with
work here.
boils.
Yeah,
What I'm hearing.
only 4 left. Only 4
Okay,
boils to
well.
puncture.
All right. Yeah, I have no problem fixing our roads. I don't know if I would call these emergencies, but maintenance issues. So this is a question directed to Sharon. I know she's got her mute button on. I'm just friendly reminder. But we used to have 30, 40 grand in our emergency road fund. And then if we need a little more, we'd borrow it from our reserve funds and stuff. And I know we've been doing some different kind of accounting lately, and I can't remember what because I just don't. But so we have that much in our emergency repair fund, which is a lot, maybe too much. But you know, and then because I like the plan before where we put it in our reserves and not feel like we have to spend it.
Well,
Okay.
keep in mind,
I'm a
let's
budget
but-
line guy.
let's
So-
not conflate the name of this. This is special road project.
Yeah, sorry, special road. I'm sorry. Now, when we started, it was emergency. I get it.
Yes.
So
Go ahead, Sharon.
Sharon's got her hand up. I'll let her
Yep,
speak.
go ahead,
Sharon, can
Sharon.
you explain why we have so much money in there?
Mr. Carr, we put extra money this year into the special roads projects and out of potholing because we thought when we did these road projects
Yep.
that we wouldn't need as much possibly potholing money. And so we moved it down to the special roads projects, as I recall, and
Okay.
then could put it back in where it was needed.
Got it.
And
that
so
makes sense.
that's why that has a little bit of inflated money. But
Okay.
every year we've been trying to fund the special roads projects as a way of getting our road maintenance done.
Right. Okay. Sharon, thank you for that explanation. Going back to the boils. Yeah, I mean, I'm not for not getting some of these done. But also do we have any other projects we were going to do that were more of a guardrail type project or something for safety? I don't, Kim's shaking her head. I don't know, but that would be my question. And the other question I have is there's a lot of dirt we're removing. What are we doing with that? The reason I'm asking that is dirt's expensive. And if they're hauling it out of there, are we using that? Are we recycling that at Klein's? Are
What
they using it-
location you talking about?
Pardon me,
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, what location?
What they're digging out for the frost boils. They're gonna haul out 800 cubic
Oh,
yards
in the quote? Okay.
on 110th, 622 cubic yards on 120th and 222 cubic yards on Joliet. What are we doing with the dirt? I
Hmm.
mean, it's a lot of dirt.
Yeah, well,
Maybe there's
but
something
Tom,
we could
let's
use
stop
for.
you there and answer a couple of your questions before
Sure.
we're gonna pile up the questions.
Yeah,
here.
no, that's
Let's get
fine.
a couple of these answered. My point with the frost boils is that the Joliet and the Inwood did not have what I,
No.
and perhaps the rest of the council would consider to
Right.
be good bang for the buck. Tom, can we identify other projects? That's a great question.
Right.
And I think if we were to put our head together, we could probably identify some of the things that perhaps may be preferable to doing those. Okay. And I think the council could probably do that in probably even by next month, we might be able to identify some things. But let's get to that second question, Tom. I find that to be an interesting question. Where does that go, Brad? I know that it is frost boil material, but once dried, it's as good as any other material. What happens to it?
So typically the material would go to the contractor. That's the way this contract is set up. It's not that we couldn't ask them to deliver it to the city. I'm not sure where we would deliver it to or where we would store the material or what we'd even use it for. A lot of this material that's below the gravel is, frost susceptible soils, meaning there's a lot of fines in it, a lot of silt. Not something you want to build anything with, but you could certainly use it as clean fill. But again, I'm not sure where in the city of Grant we would use the material and where, if we wanted to use it in the future, where we would store it. So again, typically the contractor would keep the material.
Well, where do they store the C5 that they stockpile? They dig off and stockpile. Because that's part of the
Well,
quote.
I'm
too.
assuming they would just store it right there on the road as they're doing the work, probably move it off to the side or move it off to the one end or something. Would be my guess. So at least we're trying to utilize the existing gravel on some of these areas. It's not like they're trucking it off and then trucking it back on.
Okay.
I'm assuming they were pushing it off to the side of the road or even to one end or the other.
Yeah, I've seen them use cats to cut that whole surface off, Jeff. I watched them. Well, I didn't watch them, but I saw it when they did the end of Joliet. Basically, you took a D6 or something and moved it all to the end, pushed it off, and then dug down sand, fabric, and then they throw the C5 back on there and roll it about 100 times. So, I mean, that's what's going on there. If that other material doesn't have value, and certainly we do not have a place to store it, but I have some ideas coming up on that, Tom. I'm glad you kind of brought some of this stuff up because I have some other ideas maybe for the city moving forward, but not ready to present those. Will be later on. At this point, if we have kind of cleared up all the shaft, nope, Jeff Schaefer, what do you got? What do you got, Jeff?
Thanks. Like some of you, I drove all those roads as well, and it's a little deceiving this time of the year because it's not very obvious
Mhm.
that the frost
Yeah.
floods. They show up in early spring at thaw.
Mhm.
But I did travel Inwood Court, and I agree with you that that's very expensive for a small road. I also noticed that road is not crowned very well, and the rainwater is actually following the road for quite a ways in quite a few locations. But I have a question for Brad. I had read some information about a different way to handle certain frost boils. And there's a method, and it doesn't work with every situation, of course, but it's
Jeff,
a method of.
Jeff, I'm going to stop you there. That's really more appropriate for council updates where we can kind of talk to Brad about that stuff. We've got to make a decision on this here, but I do agree with you on Inwood. I drove it, went up and down, and you're right. It could use a little better grade, and it was digging out the sides a little bit. But will you please save that for council updates, if you would, please, Mr. Schaefer? And then we can bring it up at that point and discuss it because it's new information that you have, right? So we'll have you bring it forward and we'll discuss it at that point. Let's go ahead and determine whether or not we're just going to do 110 or 120th. In fact, I would go ahead and make a motion that the special road projects this year consist of the 110th Street frost boil and the 120th Street frost boil as ranked 1 and 2 by Klein Brothers Excavating. Motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Second, Mr. Giefer. Discussion? Kim?
Councilmember Carr,
Sure.
Councilmember Rod,
Yeah, yes.
Councilmember Giefer,
Why not?
Councilmember Schaefer,
Aye.
Mayor Huber.
Aye. Thank you, Kim. Thanks, guys. That's just the most bang for the buck, but Jeff, I'm looking forward to your information and council updates here, okay?
Okay.
Nothing for Jennifer tonight, nothing for Dave tonight. The 2021 budget work session, if we can all get out our schedules here, I think Kim probably has some dates for us, or maybe Sharon.
Mayor and council members, I would recommend you schedule a work session prior to your regular August meeting, as you have done for the last several years. We usually do it an hour prior to. And then if you need a second one, we can schedule another one prior to your September meeting. The preliminary budget needs to be adopted in September. After your first work session in August, if you determine another hour before the September meeting isn't enough, we can certainly schedule another work session during the month of August.
Okay, so August 3rd is the date on that, correct, Kim?
Yep.
Okay, so an hour early, so we'd meet at 6 p.m. for a budget discussion on August 3rd. How does that sound, everyone? Tom? Sound good? John?
Yes, it works.
Mr. Giefer? Mr. Schaefer?
Good.
Excellent.
And
Go ahead,
Just
Sharon.
ask, are we going remote or in person on this?
Yeah.
It will be remote.
Yeah, we need to start talking about
Okay.
that real soon too. About moving back into the schoolhouse there. Definitely needs to be discussed. Okay, real good. All right, so we've got next on the agenda, if there's no questions on that budget work session, the determination of additional COVID funds. Kim, do you want to start with this or do you want me to start with this?
I will, Mayor and council members, you got all the condensed information regarding additional COVID funds. They're very specific about what those funds could be used for this year or this go around. The funds do last longer this time than the previous time. But if the city determines you want to get those additional COVID funds, I have to apply for it tomorrow. Tomorrow is the deadline. I honestly didn't see a lot in their specifications, what the city could use those funds for. Again, they're very specific, but that is certainly up to the council if you would like to get those additional funds.
Thanks, Kim. I'm just going to jump in then. You know, guys, I've read through this pretty exhaustively, and unfortunately, the uses for these funds, while they are a much longer time frame, 21 to 24, you know, good solid 3 years like the first one should have been, but wasn't. The uses for this, for our city, are extremely limited. Most of the infrastructure stuff that they're talking about here, whether it be cybersecurity for our sewer and water infrastructure or replacing lead pipes that deliver city water, a lot of that just does not apply to us. The only thing in here that I can find that applies to us and where these funds would be most useful is in the fourth page, investments in broadband infrastructure. Now, those investments in broadband infrastructure, as you remember, gentlemen, we did just redo the agreement with Comcast, and we did negotiate a large grant from Comcast once we identified a project area. Okay, so once a project area is identified, we could use those grant dollars from Comcast, $250,000, as well as these COVID funds. We don't know how much they'll be at this point, but whatever they are, we could apply that also toward them and be within the guidelines for the spending of these dollars. The fly in the ointment here, and what I come to you with as sort of a proposal, is this. If you read further in the requirements, the broadband improvements require, and I quote, eligible projects to reliably deliver minimum speeds of 100 megabytes per second down and 100 megabytes up. That's a lot of bandwidth. So you're talking fiber in most cases. In cases where it is impractical due to geography, topography, or financial cost to meet those standards, however, projects must deliver reliably 100 Mbps down and 20 Mbps up. That's doable in grant with the infrastructure we have that I'm aware of. However, I am no engineer, and before I would say that we would spend the money on this, we need to make two decisions. Number one, did we have Kim apply for these funds? Okay, I think that's a no-brainer. We apply for the funds. If we can't spend them, they sit in an account or we cut a check back to them, right? So we apply for the funds, number one. Number two, I would, because I am not an engineer, and Comcast is not going to lend their engineering help to our project. I can be very clear on that matter. I would like the council to direct, if those funds come in, we get the funds, I would like the council to direct the clerk, or appropriate staff, including the attorney, to engage a engineering firm that did the needs analysis during the renegotiation process, CBG Communications in Minneapolis, and what they could do, and rather cheaply, it wouldn't be horribly expensive, gentlemen. They could take a look at the existing infrastructure that Comcast has, take a look at that 110th Street project that we had originally envisioned down across the top of Joliet and then all the way down through into those neighborhoods down there. They could take a look at the infrastructure already existing and determine for us, hey, Grant Council, you can meet these requirements, the 100 Mbps down and the 20 up, or the 100 up and down. You can meet these requirements. At that point, we would have another decision to make, but we would have an informed decision to make. We'd know we could make the up and down requirements, and we could use the COVID funds to do that. Does that make sense? I know it's a little convoluted. Yeah, Kiefer.
One quick question, would we, I know you said it's not very expensive, maybe about 4 or 5 grand for that feasibility
Yeah,
study.
it wouldn't be much.
But would we be able to in turn use the COVID funds to pay for that to as well, or was that something
Well,
on, we're gonna eat?
Jeff, I mean, you're talking to a mayor who's willing to spend federal dollars pretty
Yeah,
aggressively, I think. And as long as it falls within the guidelines for the printing press, I mean, the money that we get from the federal government, I would be more than willing to do that. Yes, if that
Yeah.
falls within those guidelines.
that's the only question I had. I mean, it seems to be a no-brainer, at least going forward, and
Yeah, so the decision is number one, go for the COVID funds. Determine whether or not we can use them. And number three, the council would have another decision to make. Well, sure, let's do that. We've got the grant from Comcast, we've got the COVID funds, let's do that project. But these are the steps we'd need to follow. So 1 and 2 tonight would be, number one, direct Kim to apply for the COVID funds. Okay, and then I would like a decision tonight to direct staff, appropriate staff, to engage CBG Communications in Minneapolis and have them determine whether or not this is even something that can go forward. Additional questions or comments? Brad, Tom.
Grant's had a long-standing tradition of curmudgeonness where we tell people like the Met Council and everybody else to go pound sand when they try to give us money, because we don't want their money because there's always strings. I didn't want this money to begin with. I still don't want it. So if the mayor's saying that there's a way that we can get some people broadband and there's a method that actually would help, fine. But other than that, I don't care. I don't want the money. I would never apply for it, but
Right.
I would not go for it if you think there's some value.
Yeah, and let me sort of address your concerns and your fears there, because I share them very, very much share them, especially HUD dollars. You take HUD dollars from the federal government, you have not just taken money, you've taken a ball of string along with HUD dollars. I will never vote to take housing and urban development dollars at all. These funds have been, Tom, through pretty diligent investigation on my part and the clerk, come pretty string free, other than the requirements that you read about here. So that's the only reason that I'm talking about this. When we talk about some administrations trying to change zoning rules locally through HUD dollars and that type of thing, I'm very aware of that and very on top of that. So no, in this case, Tom, I agree with that. These dollars do not hold those strings as you mentioned. Other comments, questions, gentlemen? John, you live on 110th. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I like the last line that they have, you can have these projects must also be designed to serve unserved or underserved households and businesses, defined as those that are not currently served by a wireline connection that reliably delivers at least 25 megapixels. I mean, we have 5. So, I mean,
Exactly.
It's kind of funny. I would love to have 25 and be underserved.
and
Yes.
unreliable as well, John. You have to
Yes.
add unreliable in there as well.
Yes.
Right. I have to add unreliable in there as well. We could, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think, I mean, if it can help everybody on this street that doesn't have anything close to even the underserved speed, that would be fantastic. I'm sure I speak for everybody down the road, all the way to Manning, that would love to see that.
I will do what I can, but John, frankly, all joking aside, kidding aside for a second, that's why it's so vital for the council to direct, appropriate staff to engage with CBG, and get a quote to at least present back to the council, because we have to hit those targets. You've eloquently laid it out. We have to hit that underserved target. We have to be able to prove that to spend these funds. And then we have to be able to hit that upper target. If we can't hit that upper target, we may not have a chance to do this. But it's just vitally important today for, again, the council to authorize the administrator to apply and authorize the administrator or appropriate staff to engage with CBG and at least find out what it's going to cost us to get this done. So
Right. No, I agree.
that
it-
said, I'm looking for a motion for those two, or direction, pardon me, Kim. Is that what you
Yeah,
want?
we don't
Kim?
need a motion.
Don't need a motion, pardon me, there's nothing on the floor. Looking for direction to apply for the COVID grant and then to engage with CBG for a quote. Who would start that direction?
I'm in favor of that.
You're in favor
Both
of
those.
that. I am also in favor of that. Do we have a third council person in favor of that, Mr. Schaefer?
Favor of it?
Favor.
He's in favor, Mr. Rock. And Mr. Carr, you're looking very curmudgeonly there.
Yeah, yeah.
He
we
dumped
lost
us.
it.
He dumps us. Kim, you have your direction.
He lost.
We
his
have
vote.
a quorum anyway, so.
Yeah, we got it. We're good. All right, unfinished business. Doesn't look like we have any. Staff updates. Brad, Kim, and Dave, any staff updates for us? Kim?
Mayor and council members, it was just brought up earlier in the meeting regarding going to in-meeting or in-person meetings. And I do have some info on that in terms of not all the cities in the metro, but several cities. This Willerny, the city office, is going to continue staying closed. I think the mayor feels that we have done a very good job of keeping COVID out because we have been open this whole time in terms of appointments and people picking things up. Willerny is staying with the Zoom meetings, as is Delwood. I was in court for jury duty. You are required when you go there to wear masks and social distance. That's one of the issues with getting back to meetings at town hall is the social distancing. It's not large enough for the PC and or public hearings and or even the council and staff and to be able to video. It's my understanding that there are several other cities, Matamidi, Lino Lakes, lots of cities that are larger that have gone back to in-person meetings. They also have the space to social distance. They have great big rooms where they've got all their video equipment set up and they've got, like I said, they have the space for it. So if you guys want to put that on the next agenda where you talk about it, if you feel you need to make that decision, it's up, I guess you can. I'm not going to go back into in-person meetings at this point.
I'm sorry?
I said I am not in favor of going back to in-person meetings at this point. I think it's too dangerous. I think that with these variants coming out, and I think there's some city liability there.
Hmm,
Come to public
Okay.
hearings and get something.
yeah. Well,
That's my opinion. Again, if
Yeah.
you guys want it on the agenda for next month and you guys make a decision, that's what we'll.
well, to just play devil's advocate here for a second, public hearings would be easy. I mean, I can think of a dozen different ways to do public hearings where we could maintain social distancing. The trend is back toward in-person. We know that, for example, the county commissioners are having in-person here in other places. Other cities are doing in-person here in other places. It's for the council to decide. If we wait until there are no germs left, it might be a while before we get back to town hall. So the council will need to decide whether or not that's something they want to see on the next agenda or not. So Mr. Schaefer, you look like you're ready to talk. What do you think?
I'm in favor of putting it on this coming month's agenda. Absolutely.
Okay. Have a discussion on it. Okay, John?
I am not, just because of the variants and my kids that I have, if I get anything. And they've shown that people that have vaccinations, like I do, can still get it. They were just showing a study in Israel where 85% of the people are vaccinated and most of the people are getting the Delta variant even through vaccines. So not a big fan yet until we have more information about what this variant does with the vaccines. There's new information every day. So right now,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's one hell of a vaccine when you start getting sick again. Kiefer.
No, I'm in favor of discussing it. I'd like to know what the actual guidelines are from the state. We talk about social distancing. I mean, I go to restaurants and it's no mask, everyone's next to each other. So why is this any different? I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe Dave has some more knowledge on the specific guidelines that we have to follow unless we're going to expose ourselves.
Let's talk right now about whether or not we're gonna have a meeting, then we'll pull in the
Yeah.
attorney if required. Mr. Carr.
I've been going to a smelly, moldy, old city hall for 20 years. And I think my immune system is fine to beat back just about anything short of the plague. So I would be glad to start regular meetings, and maybe Grant can lead the way, showing people that you can get back to normal. Nothing's going away. The flu came back every year. If there's a variant, it's gonna come. Let's just hide in the house. I don't know. So I'm fine. Let's just do it.
Okay, we have
I'm
our
the
three
oldest. I'll
people.
be the first to go, and I'm
Sounds
willing to
good.
do that risk. So
I'm not meeting at the basement though. No matter what
I-
we decide, I'm not going to the basement.
that's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
and I respect everybody. They can do whatever, but I
Yeah.
think to Mr. Giefer's point, if everybody's going to restaurants and everybody's doing all that, I don't understand. And
Yeah.
if the governor's backing off, I don't understand why we can't go back to where we were.
I know that the state government, as well as most hospitals in town, are still looking for what happened to the flu virus. Apparently that disappeared this year. So we've got three people who want to talk about it. Let's get it on the agenda for next month. Anything else on staff updates? Dave?
Oh,
Brad?
staff. Nope, not me. I'm next.
Staff.
After staff.
Nothing. I see shaking heads. Shaking heads. City council reports future agenda items. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Based on our conversation before, if we need to do I'm a firm, if we've got it in the budget, let's spend it, because that's what we're supposed to do. Roads are our most important thing. Sharon was kind enough to remind us that we have some money in there. We're doing a few boils. Maybe we should look at some guardrail, some other things if staff has an idea. The Klein brothers have an idea where we can spend some money that will be well spent for safety issues. I would be glad to, think about getting that on the schedule also.
Real good, Tom. And I would second that. I think that there are one or two pretty darn good candidates out there for some guardrail. There's some places in Grant where you could be wet real quick if you are on an icy road, and that is no
Yep.
fun. No bueno.
Let's get the money on the street and out of the budget. So
Yeah, no, I would agree. Do we have any other agreement with having a discussion next month on using some of that special road projects in a different manner? Mr. Schaefer?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, very good then. Let's go ahead and get that on. We'll call it a discussion on special road projects additions. Mr. Schaefer, you wanted to talk to the council about some frost boil, new technology out there.
Yes, but before I talk about that,
yeah.
Tom mentioned our old moldy city hall.
Ah,
affectionately
Yes,
said that.
Yes.
I'm not saying it is. I'm just, yeah.
I would like to put that on next month's agenda as well. Specifically, some repairs and maintenance to the building.
yeah,
Yeah, that I'm a supporter of that.
Yeah.
That's a great
As am-
idea.
as
It's
am
something
I.
pretty sad.
yeah. The clerk is actually already on top of this. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, Mayor and council members, I just wanted to let you know, I have tried to obtain bids for, apparently there's some drainage issues out there, so some, what do you call them, Jeff?
Gutters?
Yeah,
Got
those. And when I was out there, when we were out there for a cleanup day, it very much appears to me that it needs to be painted as well. So I did try to get some bids on those two items, the gutters and the painting. I have not gotten those back yet because are way too busy. Then Councilmember Schaefer had mentioned he went out and took a look at it and said that there was probably some more repairs that needed to be done prior to painting. So what I would suggest is, and I don't know that I'll have those bids by next month, but I would suggest maybe if you guys get time, you're driving around, go take a look at it and see what you think.
Yeah, but let's get it on
We'll
the
have the
agenda.
bids.
And- Yeah, get it on the agenda. You're already in progress of it. Fantastic.
Yep.
The big items. So let's just talk about City Hall next month. We'll throw it on there and have a quick discussion on that.
I will
Any-
note there's $3,000 in your budget.
Yeah, well, we might have to throw some other stuff toward that. That's our only asset. We're gonna have to keep it in at least decent repair. In case we have to start, or we are starting to meet back there. So we better get that on. It sounds like we've got 3 people in favor of that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, very good then. And Jeff, did you want to transition then into that new technology you were discussing?
Well, I don't know if it's a new technology, but I came across possibly an optional method to treat some of these frost spoils. And it's kind of in a testing stage apparently. And what they do, and it has to be the right situation, of course. It can't be on roadways where there's standing water in the ditches, things like that. But what they're doing is augering holes in the road, and they can be as wide as 18-inch holes in a kind of a grid pattern, maybe a 10-foot grid pattern. And they fill these holes with very coarse rock. And what that does is it gathers the moisture in the subbase and drains it further deeper or away. And supposedly it's a lot less expensive than having to excavate the entire area. And but in my understanding, the situation has to be right for that to perform like it should. Not
Kind of like tiling farmland in a way,
Yeah.
but
yes,
They're
but
called French drains.
French
There you
drain.
go, French drains. Yep.
yes, similar, correct.
Yeah.
Right. So Brad, I don't know if you've come across anything like that.
Councilmember Schaefer, I have not. I've only seen what you've seen on the internet. I did see an article with using that technology in Pipestone County. And I could certainly make contact with those folks to see, how well it's working and in what situation they have been installing them, and do some of the legwork for you on that. But like you, I've not seen anything that's been installed more than 3 or 4 years, and who knows how it's going to hold up 10, 15 or 20 years. I know the methods that we're using here, where we're taking out the material and bringing in good material, are going to hold up over time. But it might be a good situation for a quick fix if we had to do that and we didn't have enough money. But I think we have to weigh that on a case-by-case basis, and if you're willing to try it, I'm willing to try it. So I guess with that said, I can certainly reach out to the county in Pipestone and see what they say and see if I can get some more information.
Sure, I agree. If we had more information, see how it performs for them. But I'm just saying it could be an option in the future.
Okay, do we have a couple other council members that are interested in Brad reaching out to that county and getting some information on these advanced French drains? Tom, Jeff, John, Jeff?
I don't think it would hurt. I mean, why stick our head in the sand? Pardon the pun.
No, absolutely. Unless you have to drill a bunch of test holes, there's the problem. You end up having to drill
Yeah.
test holes to determine whether or not the underlying soil is proper for it. That gets expensive because we don't have a rig. You got to rent it, blah, blah, blah. Brad, if you just want to get the down and dirty, the quick on it first, and then maybe you can present that to us and let us know what you're thinking on that. But like I say, if you got to drill a bunch of test holes, that gets expensive quick.
Yeah, I think we could just do it as a staff update next month if I get
Yeah.
some comments back from the county engineer.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds good. That sound good to you, Jeff Shaker?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, fantastic. So we got City Hall, CBG. We're going to talk about new special projects. All right. Anything else, gentlemen? Excellent. Mr. Giefer, I believe it's your turn. to do the
Matamita
community-
Public Schools Board meeting Thursday, July
Wow.
8th and 22nd, Matamita District Education Center, 7 p.m. Stillwater Public Schools Board meeting Thursday, July 8th, Stillwater City Hall, 7 PM. Washington County Commissioners meeting Tuesdays, Government Center, 9 a.m.
Mr. Kiefer, it's like you were born for that. It's incredible.
What can I
You
say?
just boom,
What
you were right
tonality?
there.
Oh,
I can do one thing,
Wow.
but I can do it well.
I
Read
would,
the
I would
community
entertain a
calendar.
motion to adjourn after that fantastic reading.
I'll make that
I'm-
motion.
I'm still in awe. I
Yeah.
can't.
Can't speak.
Do we
I
have a
don't know if I want to
second?
go yet. Let's just keep going.
Second. All those in favor of adjournment? Let's have Kim ask us.
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Councilmember Rock,
I.
Councilmember Giefer,
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Aye.
Mayor Huber.
Thank you all. Have an excellent night.
Thanks.
All right,
Yeah.
good night. Thanks, everybody.